So on today's episode of What Am I Doing at the Farm, I got my buddy's mowing deck in here off of, it's just a lawn tractor. And as you can see, we've got quite the variety of holes in it. And, some of it's from probably rust, and most of it is actually just cracks and welds that have let go. And then obviously there's been some other welding done on this deck. I'll show you that here real quick. We'll just pull this up and, you can see there's a hunk of angle and another piece there, and the bracket's on crooked and another piece in there. He's not a welder, and I'm sure that whoever worked on this, whether it was him or somebody else, they obviously were not a welder. So they got it held together well enough to make it work again for the time being. And well, now it's here because I told him that we might be able to get him fixed up a little nicer so he doesn't have to continually deal with this. So we're going to see what we can make of it. So, people love to hate on the guy that just, patched it together, made it work again, did what he had to do within his skill set. People love to hate on that guy. Well, it only took, 10 extra minutes for me to, chop that other stuff off of there. It was really no match for the torch. And, I'm sure that they mowed with this thing just like it was most of the summer last year. Got it patched up, got it working, and you can see all the, the cracks. There is a burn hole there. That weld is cracked loose. I'm actually going to leave this patch piece, even though, aesthetically it's not real pleasing. There's nothing really wrong with it as far as, function. You can see the crack right around that part. This whole deck being a stamped deck, there's a lot of extra stress in there from when it was stamped. Now, this deck is also at least 15 years old, so it takes some time for this to happen. But all the stamped decks, eventually they will crack, and as you weld them, if you don't catch it soon enough, or if you don't, get an extra gusset or support or something in that spot, and it starts vibrating, that crack is just going to run and spread, and that is exactly what happened over here. It probably started someplace down in here, ran up across, in the front, over on the side here. I'll flip this thing over, in another shot here, and show you all the stuff that's going on underneath. There are a couple of rust holes. I'm going to look for a piece of stock here and just basically patch over it. I'm not going to cut out and patch into it. We'll just patch over it, mostly to help keep the rigidity of the deck and less about, making it look pretty. We can kind of throw pretty out the window. Actually, here's a shot of those holes. And this is exactly what happens whenever you don't clean your deck out at the end of the season. Wet grass stayed right up in that top corner, in that, radius, in that fillet, if you will. And it just laid there. It never really dried, and it just rotted the material. You can also see we're missing a wheel here. Those holes are from where the weld tore out, and it's the same deal in the front part. The hole is from where the welds tore out, and there's some remnants of some extra welds. So I also asked him if, do you happen to still have this bracket? Because I could put that back in for him, and that would help tremendously on, keeping this thing from crashing into the ground. So get some of this stuff tacked together, and we're going to make it kind of look like Frankenstein. We're going to, drill the ends of those cracks, get a hole in there, get this all patched up, and then we'll see about where we need to put some stiffeners, and some extra rigidity since the deck is already compromised. So I'll bring you back once we get some of that process at least started here, and show you what we're doing. And again, keep in mind, this is not intended to be a how-to. This is a how I'm doing. All right, so I kind of got on a roll and just didn't stop, any place in this process. So what I did, remember all the holes here, we got those all patched up, got the cracks chased down. I think I got all of them here. There was the one at the end of that. I left this bar in there, re-welded this side here. Keep in mind, this is all, flux core off of a, 120 volt welder. just here in the garage at the farm. My choices here are either use that or the engine drive, which is a stick machine, which I can't get it down low enough for this sort of stuff, at least not easily. I did add a stiffener in there, a strong back, if you will. That helps keep that bracket from moving fore and aft, which it was pretty solid after I got the back part re-welded on there, but the deck wanted to actually flex in between the mount and where the idler or the I guess the tensioner for the deck drive actually goes. So I put that strong back in there. I did get the wheel and the bracket from my buddy. Got it welded in there. Again, nothing to write home about. I still haven't figured out what we're going to do with the holes. And underneath here, this is extremely, extremely ugly. It was all broken along here. Actually, there's a piece of 1-inch wide strap in there. It was just a piece of scrap. Patched it into there. Just basically enough to take the pieces that he gave me and tie this whole chute section back together. You can see up here again, that was the stiffener from inside of there. It was all chewed up, tore up, so it's hammered over and welded in a few spots, and again, pretty bad on the other side. Same thing with down here. The metal was just gone. So there's not a whole lot that you can do when the metal is gone, aside from find something put in there. Obviously, I got a big hole here. This is kind of ugly looking. Gonna need a patch plate over this area here so I can get some sort of bracket for another front wheel on there. But I got to turn this thing around, maybe stand it up and grind on this a little bit, get it flat again. We agreed that the round portion out here, aside from giving it the rigidity and some strength fore and aft in the deck, as long as it didn't interfere with anything and the rest of the deck sat level, what this thing actually looked like was kind of irrelevant. So it's just kind of back in there, which I think you can sort of see. And if I sort of come down at this angle, you can see it runs uphill, downhill. I mean, this thing was just all sorts of chewed up, and you can see the rust hole there and where it was crudely welded before. And some of this is mine. I'll own some of the dingleberries here. Some of it was done previous. I added the piece on the bottom just to try to bridge the gap and get something tied together. Got all that in there. Seems to have helped out. We'll get this part of the process finished off. I'll find something to put over that. I think just looking at the other wheel from this direction, it looks like it was, this was probably a custom bracket, specific for this. However, this piece of angle appears to be about the right height and some width to get in there, so I should be able, even though it's really heavy in comparison to the deck, obviously I got those big holes to contend with, so I may be able to use this over those holes, get it tacked in place and actually plug weld through the hole from the back side, as part of the way that I get that hole plugged up. And then, of course, I'll find a wheel. I should have one up in the other shop from another application. But again, he's not real picky on what we put in here. He's just wanting to get this thing put back together. Hopefully, get another couple years out of it. As he told me, and I very well knew. The price of a new one, you're looking at a couple $1,000 right now, even for a homeowner size one, which, in comparison to what they were just a couple years ago, it makes a lot more sense to fix one of these now than what it ever used to. So I'll bring you back when we get the other side smoothed out and see what the progress is on that. I added a patch plate here in the corner where all the rust holes were, got that taken care of. You can see just how rough the top of this deck is, and all the different highs and lows of the weld bead, and the paint is still wet here, so I'm sure that it's picking up that under the light here, pretty well. But point being, this thing is pretty rough. And whether you think that I'm the worst welder in the world or adequate at best. My buddy was just here. He checked it out and he said, wow, I didn't think that it was going to take all this, and it's coming along pretty good. And he picked up on the back wheel here, and it really didn't flex at all on him. And he said, wow, that's a significant improvement, you know, and this is going to be way, way better than it has in any of the time that he has owned it. So, you know, again, whether you think I'm the best at this or the worst at this, you know, I'm no God's gift to welding, but, you know, he's happy with it, and, you know, it sounded like it's going to be way better than it has been and get some more years of service out of it. So we're going to get back to flipping this thing over, get that stuff smoothed up. I'll get a patch plate in the front, and I'll bring you back whenever we're about ready to put the bracket and the wheel and that sort of system on here, and see what I have come up with. So here we are. I got the patch plate in. You can see the horizontal you know, heat mark there, and then the vertical over here, and it's welded at the opening. I also went ahead and put in this really heavy piece of angle, or at least, you know, really heavy in the sense of the deck. It's, I think, quarter thickness. If you look, you know, I got pretty wide, you know, weave pass here. Though, remember that big hole that was at the top there? It gets wider and actually more ugly there. And then across the top, I actually had some decent fit up, so, you know, looks pretty good there. So I'm going to turn this thing on the table. I was going to put another stiffener here. I actually just reached in, you know, behind it here, and I put a little triangular piece right there. That should be plenty strong enough for what it is and what it's got to do. So I'm going to rotate this thing on the table so I can get the wheel lined up, which I did manage to grab from the other shop. And it's, you know, it is different than the other side. You know, it's quite a bit wider wheel-wise, but I think we'll be able to get that thing to fit in there just fine. Like I said, my buddy's not real particular on what goes in there as long as there is something in there. So we're going to get that lined up, drilled, and I'll bring you back right before I shoot the thing down with some paint, show you what we did, and I think that's getting close to wrapping this up, which is good. I got plenty of other things that I need to start getting attended to. So it's a couple days later now after that last take. Not a lot has really changed here. I did shoot it down with some paint pretty much right after I shot that last piece, where I said, oh, I'll bring you back before I do that, but nothing really changed. I found the bolt that I was going to use for the wheel. I ended up, you know, needing a bushing for the wheel and a couple other little odds and ends for that process, self-locking nut, you know, spacers. But overall here, you know, it's all got paint in it. Block of wood there, just holding the chute open, more for paint drying purposes than anything. But you know, you can see that there's plenty of ugly left here. There's plenty of you know, rust pits and all that. However, the issue that we were actually trying to solve, you know, get the rear wheel put back on, patch up the rust hole that was forming back here, which is underneath this plate. And you can see, you know, we had some other issues with you know, with the weld that needed to be patched up, some thin spots. And then over here, the big one was getting this lift bracket put back on, or put on, I'll say better. It had a few pieces scabbed over it that, you know, still ended up, you know, in places where the deck just basically cracked underneath it. So we put a little gusset down there, the strong back over here. I left the piece of angle that was in here because it really wasn't in a spot that had any additional issues. Welded this both sides, patched up the, you know, the crack runners that were formed there. You know, overall, just put it back and made it work again. Put the stiffener piece back into the chute opening here. Like I said, my buddy's been pretty thrilled that we were actually able to do anything with it. He was, you know, getting to the point where he was thinking he was going to have to, you know, buy another mower, and he was looking at new ones and, you know, the prices thereof. And he asked me, you know, what if anything that I think we might be able to do with it. I told him, well, we can give it a try, and he certainly wouldn't be any worse off than where he was. And well, now he's, you know, now he's got this, and like I said, he's pretty thrilled. Thinks he's going to get at least a few more years out of it, and you know, that's the name of the game. So we're going to conclude this this video, you know, right here at this point. I'm going to deliver this deck to him actually tomorrow. And, you know, thanks for watching. Hit that comment thing and like, and, you know, all the things that the big YouTubers say to do. And, you know, if you got comments, hey, you know, got one of these, let's see what you got to say. I'm happy to hear your choices, your opinions, and hey, maybe I'll do the next one differently. Thanks for watching. I'll be back.